Hello, thank you guys for joining us. My name is Candace Prince. I'm with Green Hope Project. We are going to dive into something that I've been very curious about and I'm really excited about. Today's workshop is Eating for the Environment, and we do have this presentation from Tom Linney. I'm going to turn it over to him so he can tell you more about this topic.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Candy, for the introduction, and to all of you for being here. I know you have a lot of other things that you can be doing. But I'm grateful to the Green Hope Project for organizing this amazing variety of speakers on such great topics, and for allowing us to be a part of this conversation, because I think how we eat is really so can be so critical in terms of the future of the environmental health of our planet. And the goal, hopefully, of this presentation is to sort of highlight how our food choices can really make a big impact on the environment, and how we can reduce our carbon footprint through the simple choices in our lives when it comes to our food. I think for me, what's remarkable about making small changes in our diet is that we can help everything from climate change to species extinction to air and water pollution. And I think many people are surprised to hear this. I think it's becoming more and more people are learning about it. But I think, especially for me, when I was younger, when I was just learning about plant-based diets, this was really an eye-opener, and hopefully this will be informative to you all. But one of the reasons I think that people are surprised is that there's one sector of the food system that has an outsized environmental impact, and that's animal agriculture. I thought not to put everyone give everyone trauma from pop quizzes back from grade school days, but I thought I would do a pop quiz here. And most of the problems that we see environmentally from our food choices stem from the sheer number of animals that we raise and kill for meat, eggs, and milk every year in the U.S. And so I'm curious if people can enter this in the chat if they like, but I'm curious if people have an idea of how many animals that is that we actually raise, breed and kill in the U.S. in 1 year alone. So feel free to add that in if you have a guess. But the answer for those that aren't going to make a guess, I'll give a slow intro here and give you an extra second to respond. But there's approximately 9 billion land animals that we breed and slaughter in the U.S. annually for food. So that means there's more farmed animals raised every year in the U.S. than there are people on the entire planet. So people might think, well, what's the point of that? And well, what it boils down to is raising all these animals causes a lot of problems, most of which come from the fact that, simply put, farmed animals eat, drink, burp, and produce waste. In fact, farmed animals in the U.S. produce 100 times more waste than people do. And it's waste that contaminates our air, our drinking water, and our surface waters, and impacts the health of both people and the animals with whom we share the planet. Let me see here. Growing, one of the, I think for most of us, when we think about farmers growing crops, we think, we imagine that it's food that's going directly to people. However, 75% of all the agricultural land around the world is used for livestock production. So in fact, if we cut global meat consumption in half and used all that farmland to grow fruits and veggies, for instance, for people to eat directly, instead of growing corn and soy to feed to animals on factory farms, we could feed every single person on the earth today, plus an extra 2 billion people. We just need to eat more efficiently, and we can do so by eating lower on the food chain. Another problem is sort of, you'll see from this picture here, is deforestation. So over a quarter of all the arable land in the world is being used to raise livestock. This is one of the leading causes of deforestation. It's particularly bad in the Amazon rainforest, where, as you can see here, 65% of the deforestation is as a result of making grazing land for beef cattle, or it's to have land to grow corn and soy for animals on factory farms. and I think there's another interesting wrinkle when we think about how our food choices impact things is, obviously different crops have different water needs, and alfalfa is a water intensive plant. And of the 20 million acres that we're growing in the United States every year, most of that actually is fed to farmed animals instead of going to feed people. I thought this graph was informative because it represents how many gallons it takes of water to create a pound of a different food product. And so we see with beef it takes more than 1,800 gallons of water to make just 1 pound of beef, whereas it only takes 25 gallons of water to make a pound of potatoes. So I think you can kind of get a flavor for what this represents, and how how when we're eating higher on the food chain, the resources that it's going to require to create those products. Another I think an important area is that there's more than 175 threatened or endangered species that are imperiled by livestock on federal lands. And I think many of us don't know, but livestock grazing is promoted, it's protected, and it's subsidized on 270 million acres of our public lands in 11 Western states. And by allowing this livestock grazing on our public lands, it's endangering animals, and 33% actually of the endangered or threatened plants in the U.S. are threatened by livestock grazing as well. And you can kind of see from the picture here on the lower right-hand side what the land looks like when it was grazed versus not grazed by livestock. And I think for many of us, we have a great appreciation and affinity for wildlife, and they hold a special place in our heart. But native species are often killed to protect meat production profits. So grass-eating species, they compete with cattle for these lands for the food on the lands, and elk, deer, pronghorn are killed oftentimes to try and reserve these lands in order to be able to feed cattle. Another issue is, the effects on animals who may impact the land. Animals like beavers and prairie dogs, they've been decimated because, they're just going about their daily lives. They disrupt the landscapes that would be desired by livestock managers. And so many of these animals, if you think, oh, well, if I'm eating, a hamburger, it's only impacting a particular animal. But actually, our food choices really have a tremendous impact on wildlife in this country, and have for many years. There's another predator control program. So sort of like elk and deer competing for grasslands, part of the problem for people in the livestock industry is that they view other predators as threats, animals that may prey on cattle. So whether it's wolves or bears or bobcats or what have you, many times they are driven out. And as this example shows, is California grizzly bears and the Mexican gray wolves have basically been driven into extinction in their own ecosystems because they are a threat to the profit of ranchers on these public lands. And also we have a federal agency called Wildlife Services, which is sort of a poor name for what they do, but they actually shoot, trap, and poison millions of animals every year to make more room for cows and other farm animals to be able to survive and live and make more money as a result. And I think, if we think about, simply put, is like you think about big cities and how much waste they produce because of all the people, and we think about how many farmed animals we have on this country, it kind of pales in comparison, because of every year we're producing so many billions of animals, just kill them and then start all over again every year. And so livestock produce 500 million tons of manure per year. It's one of the leading sources of water quality problems, including affecting 35,000 miles of rivers in 22 different states. and contaminating groundwater in 17 states, and it also harms the lakes and the wetlands and other, natural bodies of water that are impacted by that waste. And then meat production is actually responsible for 80% of the antibiotic use in this entire country. So most of the antibiotics are used in advance, to try and prevent, especially when animals are raised and so many animals are raised together, they're given antibiotics to keep them from getting sick, even though they're not sick, they're sort of given in advance. And it's an abundance, used too much. And then also the pesticide use, 37% of the pesticide use is used as a result of meat production. And it creates, obviously health threats to our kids and our wildlife. I thought this was kind of an interesting picture. And I think, as we think about how many natural disasters are impacting our planet right now, and what we're seeing for the future, and how difficult that might be in terms of hurricanes and other natural disasters. And so North Carolina, for instance, is a huge state for hog farming. And as you'll see in the picture on your left, it's, as you're looking at the screen, that's the manure lagoon. So they sort of, have these lagoons that are just filled with manure, and these in places like North Carolina just are all over the, dot the landscape. But when you have a natural disaster like a hurricane comes in, you can see on the right-hand side how those areas are flooded, and all that manure gets spread into the neighboring environment, to our water, to the ground, and also, affecting air quality as a result. And then, part of the problem too is it kills, there's massive fish kills as a result of these things with the different bacteria. So it's, something I think that we're really going to have to be mindful of as we look towards the future, and, potentially having even more natural disasters as they happen. And then, climate change is definitely the elephant in the room that we just can't ignore. And it takes more than 9 times the fossil fuels to produce 1 calorie of meat than it does to make 1 calorie of plant protein. And U.S. cattle account for 20% of the country's methane emissions. And, a report from the United Nations found that meat production makes more greenhouse gases than all the planes, trains, and cars in the world combined, if you can believe it. And, I think, then you're asking yourself, well, so why is meat such a powerful driver of climate change? And ruminant animals like cows and sheep, they burn methane, which is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And the feces from the billions of animals releases nitrous oxide, a greenhouse gas that's 256 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So, and then to make it worse, all the deforestation that's happening for grazing land that I mentioned earlier decreases the amount of trees that are removing CO2 from the atmosphere. And the Environmental Working Group found that if everyone in the U.S. ate no meat or cheese for just 1 single day per week, it would be like not driving 91 billion miles or taking 7.6 million cars off the road. So, the cumulative effects of our food choices really can have major impacts on our environment. So I don't want to be just totally negative, because I want to focus on what the possible solutions and the ways that we can combat this current problem that we're having. And that's frankly just to eat less animal products. And it's fortunately for us, it's never been easier to eat more plant-based products. I think for many of you, you've seen the explosion of plant-based products in the market, whether it's in the milks or the butter or the meat products, the analogs there. There's just so many options now for food. And I think for many people, and I'll want to dive into this in the Q&A later, but for many people we're in different spots in our life when it comes to how we're eating and what we're doing. And so I'll be curious to hear from folks whether they are eating plant-based, if they eat meat a little bit less, or if they're vegan. But it's a great way to reduce your carbon and water footprint. But like I say, you don't have to go entirely vegan in order to have a veggie burrito or to switch to, to do just spaghetti one night, add the meat or what have you. There's just, every time that you choose plant-based foods, you're making the food system more sustainable. And just for fun, I thought I would do a little quiz here and another quiz. And, many of the products in our lives, may be vegan, may not. I'm curious if anyone here in the chat might want to share what, if they think of these products, which ones are actually vegan.
I know, so I'll give someone else a chance.
All right. So yeah, I'll spoil it here. And all these products are actually vegan. So, people think, oh, I can never eat vegan. I'm like, well, do you eat Oreos? Have you had bacon bits or do you eat Ritz crackers? And then this is sort of a similar slide. There's, the particular Pop-Tarts, Fritos, the Sara Lee oven apple pies. These are also all vegan. So I think, there's definitely a misconception that people are like, oh, I could never do it. Well, if you had oatmeal in the morning or you ate hash browns, or you had a bagel, you can definitely eat more plant-based foods because you're already doing that. And I think, for me, I grew up, meat and potatoes, family, definitely ate a lot of Hamburger Helper and, just, a lot of foods that were, cheap and easier to make for a big family. But and I grew accustomed to meat and ice cream and things like that. So I'm so happy now that there's these products here like fish fillets that are vegan and they actually taste really good. The soy delicious, they're so delicious. The coconut milk on the lower left-hand side of your screen, those ice creams I think are amazing. Tofurkey, I grew up eating a lot of that horrible deli meat slices that are bad for you, but they have a vegan product now that I really love, and they have vegan mayo. Gardein has an incredible array of vegan products, whether it's meatballs or turkey cutlets. They have a little pocket, like different pizza pocket type things. And just, for those that, it's not all these foods are always the healthiest. It's much better to eat cleanly and, eat foods that are less processed. But for those times where you feel like you want that element in your diet, and I think it's so nice that there's so many more options now. I think, by this graph, I think illustrates, the benefit of switching to a vegan diet very well, saving tons of gallons of water, CO2, and obviously the suffering that goes on factory farms. The ways that animals are raised nowadays aren't, like it was 75 years ago when it was, a family farm. These are industrialized facilities where animals are treated like they're just treated as a commodity. And so they're exploited, and anything that they can do to reduce the cost in raising those animals, making the cages smaller, giving them antibiotics in advance, cutting off their beaks so they don't peck each other in advance without any anesthesia. It's, there's just so many benefits, but like I say, you don't have to go all vegan. But this gives you an idea of just even switching a little bit of your diet, you can really have a great impact for animals and for the planet. These are, I know, for everyone who's been stuck at home during the pandemic, if you haven't seen these films yet, I highly encourage you to, especially from an environmental perspective. There's so many great films out there when it comes to trying to eat more plant-based foods, but Forks Over Knives, I think, is great. Cowspiracy is really important for those of us that are environmentalists to sort of understand the environmental impact that animal agriculture has. And then for those that are on the health, if they're thinking about from the health front, some of the strongest athletes in the world today are vegan. And there's a film called The Game Changers that I think many of you would enjoy. So I'm also, so I'm a volunteer, and I'm here as a volunteer today for the Vegetarian Society of El Paso. All of our events are vegan. We've been in operation for more than 25 years now, and if you can believe it, it's one of the best veg societies in the entire country. We have it here in El Paso in our own backyard, and we do cooking classes. We do restaurant hoppers. We'll work with a restaurant. They'll do an entire vegan menu for us, and we've been to places all over the city. We do film screenings of different new movies, and we do quarterly dinners where we bring in these nationally known speakers who are experts in a wide variety of fields to come and talk and have a great meal and sit down with some good people. We do potlucks at people's houses, and everyone makes their own dish and we come together. There's local restaurant and event discounts, and we do community outreach. We do feeding the homeless. We do a lot of outreach in schools and at health fairs. And so I hope, for those of you that whether you're vegetarian, vegan, omnivore, wherever you're at, everyone's welcome. We're all just trying to, do a little bit better in our lives to eat better, for the animals, the planet, and ourselves. So hopefully you'll connect with us on our accounts on Facebook and Instagram. And we have a cooking demo coming up with Jackie from The Green Ingredient. It's going to be several different kinds of mole and desserts and a squash dish. You can go to the VSEP website to learn more. We have a radio show. It's called Animal Concerns of Texas. It's on KTEP, second and fourth Sundays of the month. If anyone's interested, and we have a bunch of archives with experts that we've interviewed for the last, I think, 18 years the show's been on. But I kind of wanted to end on, I think, for many of us, we sometimes feel powerless, but, we don't have to sit here waiting for others to protect our land, our water, our air, and our health. We can fight climate change and environmental degradation through diet change. And as a consumer, every purchase you make and every meal that you make is another opportunity to help protect not only your health, but the health of this beautiful planet. So I thank you all for your time. I know I talk fast, but I'd love to have a few minutes to chat, and I'll stay as long as we're allowed to answer questions and hear from you all.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. And we do have some comments in the chat. These are great documentaries. Seaspiracy is a great one too. And What the Health.
Yeah, good suggestions. Yeah.
So before I start asking questions and take over, does anybody else have any questions or comments for Tom?
I guess I'll ask a question.
Yeah, go for it, girl.
So I guess as somebody who has spent a whole lot of time on the other side of the world, I have to give my 2 cents, I guess you could say. But I think it's wonderful that you're spreading the idea of less animal consumption and the idea of, I guess, vegan foods being more mainstream. But I do also have to add, and I try to tell people that I network with and family and friends, because as a vegetarian myself, I'm pretty mindful of what I eat, but spending time in Indonesia, I think what livestock is for the Amazon, palm oil is for Indonesia. And so lands and forests, throughout the region are being decimated because of palm oil. So when I tell people, that you can be vegetarian or vegan and still enjoy your foods, but be mindful of things that contain palm oil, because just as that is, decimating areas in the Amazon to provide for livestock, it's just as bad in Indonesia with the palm oil. So I just wanted to keep that in people's mind when they're shopping, to not be only mindful for animal products, but palm oil too is super, super important. And the zoo here in El Paso had a really great campaign. We've worked with them because we had a primatologist in Indonesia that we worked with, who we brought, and they have a huge campaign on, different products that contain palm oil and different alternatives. So if you want more information, the zoo is an excellent resource for that.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. I think there's so many elements of the in the ingredients and also the supply chain, right? As we're thinking about what products we buy, whether it's palm oil or, when you go, like Costco has great options, vegan options, but, or you have to be mindful too of like what, how much plastic you're going to purchase and whether it's going to end up being recycled. And, but yeah, the palm oil point is a wonderful one. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else have comments or questions? I would like to ask. I'm looking at the chat, and they're like, Beyond Meat is so great, and Oreos, yay! And it makes me feel better about eating Pop-Tarts now. So people are very happy about those pictures you put up. So it makes it attainable. So I know that you guys are obviously very strong within the U.S. as far as a society. How often do you meet, and where do you meet, and how can people who are tuning in even later on YouTube, how can they be a part of this if they want to join you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. We're obviously living in a very different world, in a pandemic world right now, which I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the connection between how the wildlife trade and how we've gotten into this place, and right, we're bringing species from all parts of the planet together in confined situations, and it's creating these very dangerous combinations of pathogens and other threats to us beyond the threats to the animals themselves. So, but when as we get back and better into a improved world, hopefully, that we definitely do several events every year. Like I said, the quarterly dinners, the cooking classes, the hoppers. We go to the different restaurants. If you go to the Veg Society of El Paso's website, you can sign up to become a member. And like I said, everyone's welcome. There's no judgment. Wherever you are on your path, that's great. And if you want to volunteer too and support us with our our feeding the homeless events. There's definitely a rule for everyone, and I think it's just. I think for me, I was just shocked that El Paso had one of the best veg societies in the entire country, and I think it speaks to this community, right, and how committed we are to the planet, to each other, to to our health. But yeah, so I think, for anyone who's interested, we'd love to have more people involved. There's also a vegan meetups group who hasn't been able to meet, but if you're involved, on Facebook, or you can also reach out to them. They're doing separate events, and it's a lot of overlap between the different people. And I think, the nice thing for me too is it's reaffirming, because when I get to see people from the Veg Society, it reaffirms my faith in us as people, right? There's so many good people who are committed and they're trying to do better, and that's where we all are. So yeah, we'd love to have more people come into events, or if you have ideas, we're always looking for ideas and trying different things. And I think the future, I'd love to see more potlucks and things at people's houses, because we do like events at hotels, and it's been educational for the hotels and the restaurants, because they have to host an event for a bunch of vegans, and so we challenge them, and it's kind of nice for the cooks and the chefs around the city who are like, oh, I'd love to do something different. Like, I'm tired of doing chicken and rice for every event. Like, I want to have something new to do. So yeah, we'd love to have everyone's involvement if you have time, and just, to get involved when you can, and if the things that interest you, great. And, join us, we'd be so grateful. And I think it give us a lot of hope for the future of this city and our planet.
I can definitely speak to the fact that, I'm not vegan, but I'm pescatarian, so I will eat fish. But, in first, I guess, transitioning or whatever, there's a clear mistake that, it's going to be boring. It's not going to taste good. Oh my gosh. I mean, even if you just taste like Indian food, like, it's all with the spices and the way you cook it, and it's just incredible. And so I think even if somebody is watching this later, or if you're listening now and you're interested but you're kind of not sure, or maybe it's a factor of you just don't know how to cook that way, there's solutions, there's recipes. Clearly there's a base within El Paso that can support you in that, and so don't feel like you're alone. And so in the chat, it says, how can we stay informed of the VSEP goings on? Is it the website that's on the slide right now?
Yeah, for sure. If you can go to our website, you can become a member. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram are easy ways to do it. But yeah, we'd love, the cool thing is there's an amazing magazine called Veg News, and it's high quality, beautiful pictures, recipes, updates, national updates about what's going on in veganism and the plant-based food movement. So I think if you can sign up to become a member just for the Veg News alone, because it's a very informative resource. But yeah, we'd love if you follow us and become a member if you can. And speaking to your point, like I was slow. Some people, they see a movie or they read a book and they're immediately transformed and they realize this is an important time and they have to change their diet. Where I was more skeptical, I had to overanalyze everything and look at it 50 different times and make sure that I was thinking about it right. Well, maybe I'm overlooking this. And it also was just slow for me to evolve and change and think about, so I gave up things at a time, meat and then fish and, chicken, and kind of move through the process. But so many other people, can switch right away. So wherever you're at, we'd love to have your involvement.
I have one final question for you, unless anybody else wants to jump in. You can throw it in the chat or you can unmute. Do you have a favorite meal or a recipe? Do you have like a preference?
Oh my gosh, that's so tough. I love food, and I love to eat. Like I'm hungry every 3 hours, so even when I ate meat, which is funny, people are like, oh, well, you must be hungry all the time. I'm like, well, I was hungry all the time even when I ate meat. It's just metabolism. But chili rellenos, I love. There's a vegan version of those that my wife makes. That's spectacular. I guess the good thing about transitioning in my diet is that I found that I was eating like the same things every day. It was like Jack in the Box, chicken sandwich, and then the next day it would be Wendy's. And so I didn't really eat as many foods as I do now. And I was like, oh, you must be so limited. But we have so many more foods now, which I'm so grateful for, in terms of and Asian food and like vegan sushi and avocado rolls. I love. Pasta. It's just, I love it. I love the Impossible burgers, the Beyond burgers. It's hard to narrow it down, but there's some.
And they have veggie dogs at Wienersensiel now.
Yeah, we tried those. They're not bad. They're not bad. They're not there, which is funny because 20 years ago they were doing commercials making fun of vegetarianism.
Wow.
And now here they are coming full circle because they realize,
I know.
Very large growing.
Just speaking to the fact that locally within our region, we have so many amazing like farmers and like farm to table kind of things. And so just even supporting our community is pretty incredible, I think. Yeah,
for sure. And talk about an environmental health care, right? Like buying locally and purchasing the foods that are grown here. It's it all helps.
So we have a comment in the chat. Great presentation, Tom. Thank you. Not a question, but more of a fact for everyone. There's also a misconception out there of needing to eat meat during pregnancy, but that's completely false. Oh, is it because like a protein, or is that what it is, or?
Well, I imagine that's part of it. Yeah, for sure. Well, having a son who's just as beautiful and amazing as he can be. He's 5 and not eating, beef in the womb or afterwards. I can say that, it's good. And I feel like the nice thing is that we're trying to set people on the path. It was just so sad how this country and how people here and how food, cheap food is oftentimes the worst food, but there's also plenty of cheap food that's really good for you. It's like beans and rice. I mean, like the basics of, and so it's really sad that I feel like, where our country is and where kids are, because they're eating these foods that are convenient, but, people are just doing the best that they can and are often cheap and subsidized by the government, even though they shouldn't be. But yeah, no, that's a great point. I think we can all be healthier by, and there's protein and, plant-based products here, spaghetti and bagels and like every, think about horses and elephants and some of the most muscular and toughest or biggest animals on the planet to only eat plants. And so we can certainly be in that category too, if we're fortunate enough to be able to have a wide variety of foods and have the resources in order to be able to buy those.
No, that makes absolute sense. Well, thank you so much. I can't wait for when things kick off again, because I am definitely going to be there, and I hope you guys join us as well. But thank you so much, Tom. We appreciate this and everything you do. Yeah,
and likewise, thanks for putting this on, and to everyone who's here, and for all the good that you're doing for the environment in a wide variety of ways. Just impressed by you all, and very grateful to be a part of this. And I'll plug my little Green Hope glass, my soda in. So kudos to Green Hope for organizing this and for hosting it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And everybody have a great weekend. Go eat some veggies, look up some recipes, share it with us. We'd like to know. Thanks.
Great.
Bye.